I'm chair of music and theater at Rhodes College, and we're just really pleased tonight to have these wonderful alums who are going to share some information and good vibes with you all tonight about where they are in the world and what they're doing and the theater that they experience in their daily lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Olivia Gack to get us started, one of our other wonderful alums in theater. Thank you, Olivia, for hosting tonight.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, everybody. My name is Olivia Gacka. I'm the class of 2017. I also have the wonderful privilege of serving as the college's Alumni Services Coordinator in our Office of Alumni Relations, which means that I get to help make awesome stuff like this happen. Super grateful for all of you who are here tonight, and very grateful to our panelists, Doug Trapp, class of 85, Helen Huettner, class of 2014, Michael Pham, class of 2012. Did I do that right? I think you're 12, or 11. Caitie Miller, class of 2012, and Amy Matheny, class of 1992. I'm gonna let all of them introduce themselves in a moment, but first just wanted to go over a couple of ground rules. You're already doing great on the first one, which is muting yourselves. So thank you for that. The first portion of this panel is going to be, I'm going to ask these panelists a few questions, and we're going to give each of them some time to answer, and then we will open it up to some Q&A from y'all, because I'm sure you have some questions, and I know they have some answers. So really just brief couple second introductions if y'all want to go. Doug, if you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Sure. Hi, I'm unmuted now, I think. Hi, I'm Doug Trapp. I graduated a couple years ago in 1985, and I am a TV, theater, and film actor, predominantly TV and film since 2012, and love the business. Just real briefly, I did not pursue performing really until I was 35. So that's my story. I'll tell you more about it later.
Awesome. Helen, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Helen. I graduated from Rhodes in 2014, and I've been in New York City for the past 4 years.
Oops. Helen, are you there? Oops.
I'm here.
Oh, there. Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy, do you want to go next real quick?
Sure, I'll go. Hi, I'm Amy Matheny. I'm class of 1992. I was a theater and English major. I've been living in Chicago for 25 years. I think looking back on my life, I would just say my life has been about storytelling, whether that's been theater producing or starting a theater company, being an actor, working in radio as a radio host and a podcaster long before podcasting was cool back in 2006. Activist work around the LGBTQ community since way before Ellen, 1996. And I have spent most of my, made my living in advertising and marketing, primarily around LGBTQ communities, but also now on a much broader spectrum, centralized in Chicago.
Awesome. Helen, do you want to try again?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm Helen. I graduated in 2014. I live in New York and I own a theater company. We produce art in a variety of mediums, mostly theater, but also art shows, photography, exhibitions. I've recently gotten into producing film, and I focus on stories that center around women and hope to diversify the theater scene by hiring more female artists.
Love it. Caitie, you want to go next?
Come on. Hi, I'm Caitie Miller. I graduated in 2012. I have a degree in theater and English. I was double major. Then I've been living in New York for the past 7 years, and I am a scenic and lighting designer as well as a stage manager. And currently, I just started a new job as the technical director at a private school in the Bronx. So I kind of do everything backstage these days. So that's what I've been doing.
Love it. Michael.
Hey everyone, Michael. I graduated 2011 with Liz, and I was an international studies political science major, English minor. I've been in Chicago for about 7 years. I primarily work in the, I moonlight in the Chicago comedy scene. So I am creative director of Club Asia, which is a Pan-Asian comedy collective. And we specialize in telling Asian-centric stories, but also uplifting diverse voices in the Chicago comedy scene because there aren't enough of us. So that's it.
I love all of you so much already. This is just love it. So great. So my first question, obviously we have our folks predominantly in New York and Chicago. So my first question is, can you give advice to your fellow, I know we have some alumni on here as well as our current students, for pursuing the arts in your city specifically, and don't feel like you'll be repeating yourselves because even though we have a couple folks in the same city, you do different things. So whatever is more specific to, of course, what you do. Let's just go ahead and go in the same order. Doug, if you'd like to start.
Yeah. Are there, I guess I would ask, are there people on here listening that want to come to New York to go into theater? I'm assuming that there are. So my first thought is that you need to go to every open call that you can. As a theater actor, as I said, my partner and I moved to New York when we turned 40. So people were like, oh, you should never wait until you're 40 to move to New York. And I'm like, that's absolutely right. You should never do that. But I did. And I came as an equity member. However, it doesn't matter how old you are when you come to New York because you're new. The point is that you should go to every audition that you can, whether it's obviously if you're pursuing theater, you're going to be able to get into lots of open calls. TV and film is a very different world because we can now submit for anything, but it's tougher to get into those calls if you don't have an agent. But if you're really pursuing theater or stage work, I just encourage you to do that because it's really about developing those relationships with the people behind the table. And the more that you audition, the better you're going to get. And you kind of can't go wrong if you just show up and do the work. And you'll just meet more and more people. The other thing that I really, really encourage people to do is to get into a class, whether it's an acting class or even more importantly, an how to audition class, because the audition is a very different skill than what a lot of us learn in school and when it comes to performance. And how to audition, because the audition starts the minute that you walk in the door. And really great lessons in that, especially learning the wrong ways to do it. But those are really, I would say, especially for New York and for Chicago, for the bigger theater cities, just go to every audition that you possibly can.
Thank you. Helen, do you want to go next?
Sure. I think from a theater maker perspective, New York is a great place to be. I mean, there's no shortage of opportunity in New York when it comes to productions at all levels. And I think that the con of that is that sometimes it can be a little competitive and maybe hard to get your foot in the door. But I think Doug gave some great advice to go to classes. And I also think it's a great place if you're a playwright. I'm a playwright. It's a great place to be because you can see a lot of shows and you get exposed to new and different work. So if you're a creative of any kind, whether you have interest in being a casting director or a producer, I think New York is a wonderful place to be because there's ample opportunity for all of that, even if you're interested in doing it more of as a hobby.
Amy?
Yeah, so for Chicago, I mean, Chicago is called like the city that works, and it's a very blue collar city. And to me, the best thing I can say if you're coming to this city is see as much as you can, and you can see theater and go to performance very affordably here. It is technically, I would say, a little more affordable, or a lot more affordable than Manhattan in many ways. And because of that, I think that you can be a stand-up comedian and be an actor and design your friend's show. And in that way, I really think, look, you may not make your living, doing theater, but you can make your life being creative and doing art here. And I think, what I love about Chicago is that I feel like people do really cross. I don't feel like people are very pigeonholed. Like, you will see more backslash with people here. And I think it's just because there's a very collective spirit. I mean, it was very much birthed out of Frank Galati and Steppenwolf Theater and this idea of like socialist theater. But I mean, it's really this way that it kind of points to one of our other questions we may be talking about. But as a Rhodes College graduate, I really felt that tight-knit community that I feel in Chicago. And I never feel in Chicago like, if you wanted to act, produce, playwright, and design, that is like, well, you need to figure out what you want to do. And I kind of love that, because you'll meet people doing all of those things. So, absolutely, classes are great and they're plentiful, but I think just, absolutely go out on the calls where it's happening in a park district and like just start meeting some cool people and doing material, and you'll start meeting your tribe here very quickly. It feels very small town here in many, many, many ways, with really deep roots. And I do think, you can work a long time here without an agent. But I also think it's not that hard to get an agent here. I don't want to say that in any big way, because I didn't choose to get one for a really long time. I wasn't choosing to do commercial work or film work or theater work, because or theater work outside mostly of the theater company that I started. But when you make that decision that like, I'd like to get an agent, there are going to be so many people around you who will have their agents, and it feels very non-competitive here. I think I've had many a time when people are like, who's your agent? Or do you know some good agents that I should, meet? And so I think, come with an open heart. At least in Chicago, I think it's a very open city that wants you to succeed. But you have to understand that succeeding is not always the money that's in your pocket, but wants you to succeed in making art and doing your craft and learning your craft.
Caitie.
First, I want to agree with what Helen said, which is that you should be seeing as much theater as you can. That's definitely the best way to like really expand who you are as an artist. And that's one of the best things about being in New York, is there's all kinds of theater that you can just see every like other block. Not right now, of course, but But so the other thing I was going to say is that you should always be looking out for people and artists that you want to work with, but also you want to learn from. When I first came up to New York, my first job that I got, I was an assistant stage manager for a woman who taught me everything she knew about stage management. And I thought I was, hot shit, I knew everything. But then she was in the union, she was in equity. And so I learned all kinds of stuff that I didn't know before. And then making that connection allowed me to get my next job. And then making that connection allowed me to get my next job. And like I said, I'm a designer and a stage manager. And so as I started to make these connections and I was finding new artists that I could learn from with each show, then I could start expanding. And instead of just stage managing, then I could like go and assist somebody with design. And then I could start to develop my own portfolio as a designer. And so looking out for people that you can keep learning from the whole time that you're working, but you're also learning. And I mean, you're not going to get paid a lot, which is terrible, but at the very least, you can keep looking for those opportunities that are going to bring you to the good jobs that eventually might pay you to do art, which would be great.
Thank you. Michael.
I think, it's everyone's like dream. And when they talk about like what your dream is creatively, it's like, I'd like to get paid to do what I want, right? So Chicago, I think, is a good place to start pursuing that. Like I moved just because I knew, I did it from a purely like economic point of view. I was like, all right, LA is 12% above the national living average. So is DC, and so is New York, right? And DC is like when I wanted to go to law school, and I was like, maybe I won't. And then Chicago was only 4% above the national average, so I was like, okay, this is a great place to start, right? A big city, it's got a crazy theater scene, a crazy comedy scene, like the mecca of comedy, even though it's super dead right now. I don't know if anyone is tracking Chicago comedy, but Second City's for sale, and so is the IO Theater. So if you were curious about what's going on here, comedically, at least for a while, you're going to be on your own until they get that settled. So, but that's honestly like so freeing. You know, I was never on main stage for Second City, at least not on purpose. And, you know, I performed on like the ETC stage one time. And other than that, you know, it's been me, my people, my group, my friends. What Second City? Second City is a giant scam, let's be honest. It's a big theater school that's unaccredited, and Tina Fey and Stephen Colbert and Michael Scott, or Steve Carell, they all studied there and performed there on stage at some point in their lives. And, you know, it became this huge thing where you can pay thousands of dollars to sit in a classroom and learn. And I don't want to say don't take those classes, because, you know, I went to Chicago to take classes to learn how to do comedy, to grow, because like where else, I mean, you know, honestly, where else can you learn comedy except comedy classes? So, you know, I'm not discouraging you from taking those classes, but right now they're for sale. So maybe, you know, I don't know, do something else for a while. I think Chicago comedy is like a great place to learn and a great place to grow. Like Amy said, like, you know, weeknights I'm maybe like checking a friend's stand-up show or someone else's sketch show. I mean, honestly, every theater artist here is broke, and we're all passing the same $10 to each other, except we never actually see the $10 that we paid. It all goes to the theater. So it's the same $10 for every show, but you get to see like such wild, varied perspectives. And I think that's amazing. And so that was my reason for wanting to move to Chicago. So yeah.
Thank you. So all of you sort of touched on what I'm about to ask about next, which is, you know, we all have this idea of what it is to be successful in the arts, which is, you know, like making your money doing the thing and nothing but the thing. Amen. But obviously we know that that is far from true in reality. So I would love to hear y'all speak to the balance that you have struck either now or at some point in your career between, you know, being an artist and making your living that way, or making your living from side hustles or totally other careers that you're, you know, also very passionate about. Let's switch it up. Caitie, you go first.
All right. Well, yes, definitely when I moved to New York, did not start out making a living at theater, clearly. My partner and I moved up here because he was going to NYU for his master's. And so I moved up here with no job, but 2 weeks later, I started working as a hostess at a cafe in the Museum of Modern Art. And I worked there for 4 years. And what I would say about finding that balance was my priority was always that I am a very routine-based person. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go out and be a freelance type, like just, oh, I'll find my job and then I'll find my next job and find my next job. So I found this job at the Museum of Modern Art convenient, or it was perfect for me because it was like I was done with work every day at 4 p.m. So I could go to rehearsal at night. And so I knew that I would have a steady paycheck coming in, and then I would like do my freelancing on the side. And like I could usually rearrange my schedule to make that work. And that was really important to me. So then when I went back to grad school, you know, I spent 3 years in grad school just doing nothing but designing. And now that I'm now teaching at a school, that was again my goal, is I'm not somebody who can go live that freelance life. So I have a job at a school to be my bill payer, and I'm still teaching theater, which is, you know, that was my goal. So that's great. But if I'm going to be working outside, then it's, you know, it's something I'm going to do as my like passion on the side, not something that I'm going to be using to pay my bills. So that was important to me because I know that I am not somebody who can do the like, where's my next paycheck coming from? So that's my big advice, is figure out how your brain works and whether or not you're going to be able to live that life, or whether you need something sturdy. And then you can find theater like on the side of whatever your creative career is. So that's my big advice.
Amy, can you go next?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to say, like, you know, my early 20s and graduating from Rhodes and moving to Chicago pretty quickly. I did regional theater for a while in various cities. And so I was kind of carpetbagging, and I just discovered, as Caitie kind of said, you start to get to know yourself even more. Like, what is your life after, you know, being in college? And I really did not want to do national tours. I was auditioning. I was doing shows in Pennsylvania and Florida and Utah and, you know, and around. And I was just like, I need a home. I need a centered place. And I just somehow made a choice for a period of time. I didn't know it was going to be 25 years, but I made a choice, like, where can I go that I will be surrounded by art and passionate people, even if I'm not making a living. It became more important for me to get better as an artist and be like in the perfume of great art than it was for me to go make shitty art somewhere and get a paycheck in the middle of Timbuktu. I did that too. Well, I didn't make shitty art. I think we made pretty good art. But anyhow, so you know, so I agree with Caitie. I mean, I don't know. I'm very practical minded as well. I mean, I worked in the dental office. I worked in a gallery. I sang in coffee shops with my guitar. I mean, I did what, whatever I could to put money together while I had a theater company. But it was important to find those jobs where I could make art, or I had flexibility. Back in the day, you used to be able to like get your pager and you get paged for a job. Thanks, Doug, for laughing. And, maybe you'd get a one-off. And I was literally in an operetta, in the chorus of an operetta, and somebody asked me like, hey, you're gay, and we're looking for somebody to do a radio ad, and would you ever be willing to do that? Now, how they would know I was gay when I'm doing a radio ad, I mean, like, it's just my voice, but whatever. Maybe they wanted it to be somebody who'd be okay with it. This was before there was ever any gay ads. And it was like a Ford commercial, and I ended up booking that, and then that's how I fell into doing radio. And what was awesome was, like, I wasn't even out when I was on that radio show, but it was obviously an intrinsic part of me in a time when I was figuring out so many things. So I do think if you just use yourself as your divining rod, you listen to your gut, I think Rhodes graduates really smart, connected people, and just don't lose a sense of that. Don't lose a sense of those Rhodes ideals and what that community is, because it will be a great divining rod for you. But yeah, the beginning of your 20s is probably a mess, and it'll be great fodder and great material for the art you're going to make. But, it is better to, at least not work at night. And that, that's about the one thing I say if you're making theater. But I don't think anyone can navigate it for you. Trust yourself, and you'll survive. That's what I can say, at least for starting out.
Thank you. Y'all are making me cry. I love this. Helen?
Yeah, I mean, there's more than one way to be successful. Success is socially constructed, so in anything you do. But I think that as far as art, I think every individual has to make a decision about what success means to them, and if it's going through traditional institutions and getting traditional accolades of what going to that your art has been signed off on as being good, versus if you just want to do your own work. I started my own company because I didn't like the narratives that were being told on stage and feel like they encompassed the real stories of women. I didn't feel like they had a lot of nuance. I didn't feel like there were any difficult, complex female characters that I was ever being handed as an actor, and I was over it. So I decided that I wanted to, kind of forge my own path, and that comes with its own pros and cons. But I think, echoing everything that Amy and Caitie said, learning about yourself and how to make a living, I think you also need to learn about yourself as an artist and think, what is it that I really want to do? Because if you want to be a star, then word to guys, nobody is so talented that the pluck and given a stage. But if you want to make art, you can absolutely do that, and you can absolutely have a really successful career and a lot of life balance and be an artist that makes a lot of really cool art.
Michael.
So I see, like 3 different people usually in the, like grinding scene in Chicago. One, your parents or you yourself are so rich that like you never have to work. That is like the ideal. So if you have that going for you, like take all the classes, do all the things. Like one of my best friends, she just never has to worry. So she's in every theater class. It's amazing, even during a pandemic. 2, the opposite spectrum is that you're broke all the time, like literally all the time. And you're okay with that because either you have someone helping you or you just like are super fine with not knowing if you can afford like a Happy Meal. I know people that do that and grind like that. And like, I am not that person. I've never been that person. I, like come from a lower income class my whole life. So my parents were like, whatever you want to do that we don't have to pay money for you to do, go for it. So I graduated from Rhodes and I got a job in finance, and that finances whatever I want to do. And my dad's like, wow, why did you ever sing? I'll pay for your singing lessons. I was like, that would have been great like forever ago. Now it's too late, right? But thanks, Dad. There are people that grind that way. And then for everyone else like us, and probably you, honestly, I think if I could say one thing is that being a starving artist is hella overrated. You know what's good? Having like stability and food. Like there's a joke otherwise. I think that Chicago can let you do that. It can give you that balance where you can grind really hard, which is the spirit of being that starving artist. Like you can go see, neo-futurist shows or comedy or Second City shows or your friends stand up and stay out till 10 a.m. and spend $40 on drinks and do all that stuff and have fun and grow as an artist and still like at the end of the day pay rent, right? Like that don't not pay rent. I mean, capitalism, but you know what I mean? Like, sorry, this is a ramble. We will deconstruct capitalism later, but for now, pay your rent and do your art, right? That's the thing. You want to be able to do both. So Chicago is really good at giving you ample opportunities to do that. And multiple people, I think, like the further you get down the line where Amy touched on it a little bit, like if you want to be a commercial actor, you have to prepare to have day jobs that let you do that. Like if you work at Apple Store, they're way more flexible than if you work in a 9-to-5, and if you work nights, then you can't do theater because you absolutely cannot make it to a rehearsal on time. So balance out what you want to do. If you want to do commercials, you want to do that, then you want to do theater, do that. So
good.
Doug.
Those were everything was great. Caitie said the word sturdy. I love that. As I said, I came to this business late. I came at age 35. After college, I went to a school called the Portfolio Center in Atlanta for commercial art and advertising and became an art director because I wanted to go into advertising. So Amy, I can't wait to talk to you about that. And I hit the ground running and became a very successful art director really quickly. And I moved to Minneapolis and just fell in love with my job. And then realized, well, I came out a long time ago. Then I realized I didn't have a boyfriend. I didn't have a house. I didn't have all these sort of sturdy things, which I love that Caitie said that. And I went on the AIDS ride where I rode my bike from Minneapolis to Chicago. And this was in 1993. And I had an epiphany. I got to the top of the hill one day. This was after you riding like 90 miles a day on a bicycle. And I literally burst into tears and was like, people were on this ride riding for loved ones who had died of AIDS or people who were positive. The whole thing was just kind of amazing. And I literally had this thought, if a bus ran me over right now, I would say, wait, there's something I wanted to do, but I haven't done it yet. So 2 years later, I quit my job in advertising. And my boss held a dollar bill at my going away party and said, let me know when you want this again. And I, of course, was like, well, that'll never happen because now I'm going to pursue my dream. And so it was like going back to kindergarten. And I fell in love, literally, with my partner doing a show, and then fell in love with my life again. Now, did I not go back into advertising? Of course not. I went back into advertising, and I called it my very lucrative waiting tables job. And so I had two careers, and there were many times where I would be in the middle of a meeting and I would get a call back and I was like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, so I really understand that balance thing. So I navigated it. I made some mistakes. I pissed off some people at jobs, but I lost an agent once who said your priorities aren't in the right place. Well, yes, they were, because to what Michael said, I was paying my rent. I was, making a living. So the point is there's no one path to it. But my dream was to be on Broadway. I never got on Broadway, but I got seriously off Broadway, working with Tony-nominated people. And then I started booking television, and my first job was being Tina Fey's accountant on 30 Rock, and not knowing what I was doing, but I got the job, and fake it till you make it, and have been working in TV and film ever since. And finally, this face that was always like, you're too young, you're too young, you're too young, you're too young, finally was like, you're just right, you're the accountant, you're the white collar guy, you're the this, you're the that. So my dream is to be a serial killer, and so that's hopefully going to come up soon. But my point is that, yes, do not, I love Michael, do not drink the Kool-Aid of I have to be a starving artist to be successful. Bullshit. What you have to do is you have to follow your heart, and it's going to take you in lots of different directions. Where I am now, when I graduated college, I never thought I would be performing for a living. Now, I collect some decent residual checks from SAG, which is great. I still have to be a creative director in advertising to afford my house that I'm sitting in right now. But you know what? I had this great sense of balance, and I also discovered, much like Amy said, I don't want to do national tours. I really don't even want to do Broadway now, because what I want to do is I want to be in TV and film because it fits my life, it fits my schedule, and it lets me have so much fun, but then I can also make a good living doing something else. So balance is everything.
Love it. Every single one of you. I'll just keep talking about how much I love you. My next question is, I would love to hear from y'all about a time when an experience you had in college, the college that we all share, prepared you for your career in the arts, whether or not that experience was significant, whether it was specific to the arts or not. I hope it was significant. And then like a subset to that question is like, what perhaps did you wish that you knew as a student that you know now? And I know you've touched on that a lot, but the big thing really is like, can you talk about an experience that you had as a student at Rhodes that got you where you are, whether or not, could have been a bio professor, who knows? Let's start with Michael.
How did I know it was going to be me? I loved my Rhodes experience. Honestly, when I was thinking about this question, spoiler alert, that she sent it to us beforehand, so we had time to think about it. I would say that I think the most eye-opening thing for me was taking classes that I wanted to take, and there are a lot of classes that I didn't get to take. I never took a theater class at Rhodes, and that made me really sad when I thought about this question. I was like, damn, I really should have, because anything that you can think of that you're interested in, that you want to start, do it. College is the best time to start doing that stuff, you know what I mean? I took painting. I can't even remember the name of the professor, but she was cool. I made mistakes. I graffitied the whole wall one night without telling her, because I thought being an artist was cool and you could do whatever you wanted. And she planned on using white walls to present art the next day. So I got in a lot of trouble for that. But you know what? You graffitied a wall in college, but it happened to be sorry for, the corporate sponsors of this podcast, I was going to say, of this Zoom talk right now. I painted your walls. I paid. I went to Home Depot and I bought the paint and I painted it. So it's fine. but you know, that was an eye-opening experience. I got to do something that I always wanted to do, and you know, take the risks in college. I'd say the other thing for me, just comedically, you know, we have Cup alumni here. We have two really, really funny people that live here, and I met them through not comedy. I met them at Rhodes alumni meetings, and we ate Kaiser Tiger and drank beer, and they were so funny then. And then seeing them on stage and around theaters is a blessing, because for whatever reason, Rhodes ties you cosmically to other Rhodes people, and it's fun. Just nice. So yeah, they're crazy funny. So if you ever find Tom Zimmermaker or Laura Johnson, they also do comedy. They're also funny. So if you're thinking about doing Cup, do Cup. That's the number one thing I wish I had done, because Cup was really funny when I was at Rhodes. I'm sure it's funny now too, but Cup is, for anyone who doesn't, the Cup is Contents Under Pressure, which is improv. So they do a lot of the things that you'll learn in class and pay money for if you don't do it now. So do it. Yeah, that's it for me.
And Helen was in Cup as well. I don't know about Caitie or Amy or Doug, I guess, but Helen was in Cup. And yeah, Michael, you know, that is one of the things that I love about having you on this panel is you don't have to be a theater major to be in art in the real world. Not a requirement. Certainly great. Doesn't make or break your life, you know? So yes, love that. Doug, let's have you go next.
Okay. An experience in college that changed me. Okay. Carol, you're listening, so you could. Our voice teacher, Diane Clark, who was our voice teacher a long time ago, I've forgotten about this. She reminded me. She came to see me in a production of Putnam County Spelling Bee in Michigan 10 years ago. And we went and had drinks afterwards. And she said, do you remember that I threw you out of my studio one day? And I said, no, I don't remember that. And she said, well, yeah, because you had not been practicing at all and you were blowing it off. So I threw you out. So I guess I blocked that experience, but that's my convenient, funny answer. But I really think that that's a great example of if you're not prepared, you're going to get thrown out. So especially coming to a place like New York, which Amy, I loved how you're saying Chicago's like the city where people work. You know, New York can be the city of like either do it or get out of the way. And that can be kind of overwhelming and scary. But at the same time, the thing that lesson of being thrown out of her class was basically that, you know, it sounds so cliche, life's not a dress rehearsal, but it's so true that if there's something that you want to do, then, you know, do it. Don't be lazy and actually do the work. I remember hearing, you know, for people in musical theater, I'm a total musical theater geek, Sondheim all the way, Stephen Sondheim had said, you know, you always need to be prepared because you never know when you're going to be in a line at a coffee shop and like a music director or somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, you know what, I have an opening tomorrow for whatever, you know, and I really want you to come and audition. While it sounds a little Pollyanna and perfect, those kinds of things actually do happen. Or an agent will say, Doug, I understand you play the piano, so I got you an audition tomorrow for a Broadway show where you actually have to accompany yourself. If I had not been practicing my piano for all that time, I wouldn't have been able to show up and do it. So the point is that if there is something that you do want to do and it requires work, do yourself a favor and keep working at it.
Love that. Amy.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Gosh, something that I did at Rhodes. You know, I mean, God, I could answer that a million different ways. I mean, I will say everything I did at Rhodes has been the doorway for me here and my life in general. And I will say, you know, I went to Rhodes pre-law, like I wanted to be an attorney. And then I started doing theater. And then I came to Northwestern the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, and I got accepted, which is ironic. And I did sometimes curse the air when I started a theater company, and all these people who were Northwestern graduates had a theater company. And then our little ragtag, who, you know, we were not Chicagoans, it was a little more difficult with the Mary Zimmermans of the world and the Schwimmers. And, you know, it was at that time when like all these theater companies were coming out of Northwestern. But I chose not to transfer. And I'm so glad I did, because I went to Northwestern, and when they were interviewing me, I said, so, you know, how would I have a college advisor? And I like to do theater and I like to do music. And they were like, well, you'd have to kind of pick. Are you a musical theater actress or are you an actor? You know, and I was like, well, how many students would my advisor have? And they're like, you know, probably about 38 to 40. And I at Rhodes had access to Cynthia Marshall, the most amazing woman, who was my Shakespeare professor, and Tony Gardner, who ran the theater department and ran Rhodes College Singers, and Cookie Ewing, who taught acting, you know, literally from her loins, and directing with no bullshit, and Frank Bradley, who was, you know, a historic genius and a director and an actor, and Diane Clark, and, you know, and then, you know, and a calculus teacher who wanted me to become a math, you know, major my junior year, who would come and see my shows, and the vice president of the college who came and saw my one-woman show the senior year and wrote me a note. You know, it's just like, I had this wealth of people that were in my tribe at Rhodes. And I'm so glad that I saw that like 38 people in me, and maybe it was just my ego, like I was like a princess attitude, like I need a little more attention than that, but Rhodes gave me that attention in all areas. And so did Memphis, because I got to work at Theater Memphis when I was at Rhodes. You know, all of the professors encouraged me to go away to summer stock, go away to study Shakespeare in DC one summer. You know, I was being encouraged to say, like, there is this web, and we know this Rhodes person here, you know, in this town and in this town. And it's totally true. You know, I literally, like, we were just in this town, tiny town in North Carolina, population of 600 people. And I was talking to this woman, and I told her I went to Rhodes College. And she's like, oh, our two neighbors, they're in their 70s, but they're Rhodes College graduates. You know, it's just like, it's this weird thing that connects us. And I will say, just lastly, when I was at Rhodes, we had a course that was 2 years called Languages of the Stage, and all of the professors were in those classes. And it was a 2-year commitment. And there were chemistry majors in that. One of my good friends, Dana, was a chemistry major. There were economics majors. There were photography, you know, art majors. There were a lot of theater majors and English majors. But we made theater, and we ran that theater. We had to do hours in the costume shop, hours in the scene shop. We had to work the box office. We went to the Rat to sell tickets. And when I started a theater company, I knew how to do everything. And if I had gone to Northwestern, I don't know if anybody here went to Northwestern, but if I'd gone to Northwestern and been a musical theater actor, that's what I would have known how to do. And then when I got here in Chicago and I didn't get the big gig at the Marriott, or the one time the Goodman did a musical, or, you know, I'm doing musical in a basement, that would have been it. And so I'm just really grateful for how well-rounded I was. I think it's ironic. I looked back at my yearbooks, because a certain person's been in the news from my years at Rhodes. And I was looking back at my yearbooks the other day and showing them to my 2 children, one of who is now a sophomore at Rhodes, and did a theater production, which is the craziest thing in the world, with Joy, Alex Kerrigan. And yes, and so anyhow, I was looking at this yearbook, and I was just thinking, you know, how crazy this fabric of like all of these people, just all of these people, you know, who have been a part of my story. And so anyhow, I just think that like Rhodes just prepares you guys. If you guys are on this call, this is another preparation, but you're connected to a very powerful web of people who will help you no matter what you need. You need a dentist in this town, they probably know somebody. I mean, it's a lot of heart out of this school and passion.
Love that. Oh yeah, did I not mention that Amy's a Rhodes parent also? Oops. Caitie.
Absolutely. The Amy said about being well-rounded. While I was at Rhodes, I got to take performance classes and directing and every design specialty, and I stage managed, and so I just had my toes in every single thing, which was, you know, incredible because I came in being like, I'm a stage manager because I'm bad at acting. And that was what I came in thinking I was going to be. And then I, you know, spent 4 years just trying literally everything. My senior year, Cookie brought me on to help rewrite Antigone because she didn't like the translations that were available. So I became a kind of playwright for a little bit. Like, I got to try everything, which was fantastic. So that's definitely a thing. What I was gonna say is my most significant moment was when I came in, I knew that I wanted to be a theater major, and so I needed a work-study gig. So they sent me to work in the scene shop, and I came in and I had no idea how to use a screw gun. I knew how to do nothing. And another student and I spent 3 hours building a single platform. And it was excruciating and so difficult. And I was like, this is the best thing in the whole world. And so I learned how to be a carpenter. And like now I'm a master carpenter and a technical director, but I look at my students and they're like, I just can't get it. And I'm like, you think you can't get it now, but believe me, I was where you were at one point. And working in the scene shop, I got to work every semester. I would be the old hand, and then we would bring in the lab kids to work in the scene shop lab. And they too came in and had no idea how to use the tools. And so then I started to get to be the person who taught them how to use the screw gun, who taught them how to use the chop saw. And that's when I figured out that teaching was, you know, really where I wanted to go eventually. So like that being the new Laura Cannon is like my goal in life. So like someday that's what I wanted to be. But I learned that because I got a job working as a work study kid in the scene shop and just mentoring the people who came in to work their 60 hours for a semester. And so that really like showed me where I needed to go in the future.
Love that. Helen.
Yeah, I would say that my experience in college that kind of shifted everything was I didn't get cast in the shows. And so it kind of forced me to really like evaluate, is this something I want to do and how do I want to do it? And I was in a couple of main stage productions once my sophomore year, senior year, but prior to college and school, I had been a pure performer. I didn't want to do anything else. And then when I was confronted the reality of like, I'm either going to have to learn to do other things or I'm going to have to explore other avenues in order to participate in this, was I really discovered my love for playwriting and producing and creating in a different way. And that never would have happened if I hadn't been served a nice slice of pie upon my arrival to Rhodes College Theater Department. So that was probably the turning point. But I do think, to answer the second question, like some things that I like wish that I had learned is that, you know, alluded to this in some of the other questions, but every city is different. Every theater culture is different. And what you need to be successful in that place varies. And I know that that's a difficult fit to teach. Mentorship is really important for that reason. So I encourage people to, you know, and to mentor younger people. We were all there once, and to seek mentorship, people like to share what they know. So for young people, that's a great resource. And I should learn more about festivals and fellowships and submissions and playwriting. I didn't really know about any of that when I graduated. I didn't know how to write in form. I had to be taught that the hard way when all of my plays got rejected from things. And then I learned, oh, I'm telling them I'm not sure right on the outset because I don't know how to write in form. So if anybody has any questions about, you know, like playwriting and producing in New York, I know a lot more about that now than I did before. But I am glad for the experience that I had at Rhodes because it really shaped my ability to kind of go seek out my own opportunities when the traditional ways I thought of getting involved, like just auditioning and getting cast, didn't work out. It really did that kind of fire in me to say, to be involved, so I can have to figure out how to do that.
I love that. And yeah, I'm conscious of the fact that I've only asked for an hour of y'all's time and that we only have 10 minutes left. I had a fourth question about looking for funding and independent project funding, which I'm happy to ask you guys, but I'm also really wanting to make sure that we open up to questions from these students and alumni, because that's really why we're here. So if anybody wants to ask about project funding, you can do that. But also I would love to open up to questions at this point. If anybody wants to ask a question in the comments, or if they just want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can do that, and we'll be open to questions.
I'll do it. Hi, my name's Olivia, and I'm one of those cut people we just talked about. And I also am interested in Doug and Michael's life of being
Okay.
an actor and a comedy person. And I don't know whether I want to move to LA or Chicago after this. Sorry, New York, it's just really scary over there. But I just wanted some, I don't even know what I wanted. I just want to say hello. I just want some, like, you know, vague advice. I know you guys talked about your journeys and how you've gone to these places, but just any words of encouragement, especially since I'm a senior right now, and there's not really an industry to speak of. So is there anything that you could say to maybe pep in my step?
Michael, do you want to? I was going to say, Michael, you go first because she talked
Too late. I
comedy.
lobbied you.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay, Olivia, oh, you've gone. So hello. So are you in Memphis right now? Is that where you are?
Yes, I am in Memphis.
Okay. Well, you know, I got to New York it was a long journey. I went from Memphis to Greenville, South Carolina, Memphis to Atlanta, to Greenville, South Carolina, to Minneapolis, to New York. Okay. You know, it sounds like, tell me what is it that you said basically, is it theater and comedy that are your two? No.
I'm going film.
Film. Okay. Okay. Well, New York has a huge film market. It's not just LA. The thing that I love about the TV and film community in New York, and anybody in theater would say the same thing, is that it's an incredibly supportive community. And I believe Helen kind of touched on this. There's no such thing as a bad opportunity in New York. I mean, I did a number of smaller kind of student films, or like a pilot that maybe would take off and all that kind of stuff, you know. It's just kind of like if they were ever looking for like the sort of goofy office nerd accountant guy, I was like, I'll do it, you know. And but the more I did that, invariably, there would be a casting person on that project who then was doing, there used to be this thing called the New York Musical Theater Festival, a NYMF show, and you get paid $5, but lots of people came and see those shows. The point is there's always something that you're going to get out of that experience, and it's so much, this is such a huge, any business, but especially this business, is relationships. And my agent used to say it's about creating fans, as in FANS. The more people that you work with and the more these relationships, you're essentially creating fans, which is kind of like, if you think about it, essentially what, before we ever had social media and stuff, it's essentially, you know, how many friends do you have? How many likes do you have? And that's a huge part of it. So don't say no to New York. Right now it's tough because the pandemic and all that crazy shit. But at the same time, right now, in some ways, it's kind of possibly even better because people are kind of like, please come to the city, please. And with film, and you can control so much, kind of like what Amy was talking about in Chicago. And, you know, there's just a never-ending supply of opportunities, and people are always wanting to do their own projects, and they're always needing, and you have a great, young, kind of open face, and you're probably funny, just because I'm getting that sense from you. And so, and you also don't look like everybody else in New York. So, you know, wherever you go, just whether it's, you know, in other words, I'm saying, don't feel the need to go to LA because LA's film. Don't feel the need to do that. You can do film anywhere. Atlanta, huge film market right now, huge. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. There's a lot of stuff that's been kind of going on there too, to a degree. Now, when the TV show Nashville was on, that was a huge deal. But you know, you can kind of make it, but go to a market where at least there's enough opportunity that you've got more than enough chances, so that let's say 10 of 15 auditions don't pan out to anything, but those 5 do. You know what I mean? So just go someplace where you're going to have plenty of opportunity, and so that you're kind of dealing with a greater chance and greater numbers.
Cool. Yeah, I think just bouncing off what Doug just said, really any city that you choose to start, that's going to be like your first city and where you learn from. So if you ever move, like I have had so many of my friends, you know, either decide to go to New York after Chicago or LA after Chicago, after like, you know, I'm going to do my time in Chicago and learn how to be funny and learn how to be an artist and a comedian and try to make it elsewhere. And no matter how far you make it up the Chicago ladder, like people on main stage at Second City or IO or big theaters or, you know, whatever, Steppenwolf even, as soon as you move to LA or you move to New York, it starts over. It always starts over. They look at your resume and they say, you know, oh, you did regional theater. It was like, oh, but I just did regional theater. Like the best regional theater. It's the top regional theater in Chicago. They don't care, right? They don't care about what you did elsewhere, which is good for you because that lets you focus on growing as an artist, right? You're ideally doing it because you love the art and because you want to grow as an artist. For Chicago, there's film. There's definitely like a growing scene here. It's not as big as New York or LA. Even Atlanta, I really exist because of like The Walking Dead. So now that Walking Dead is like expanded into the Walking Dead cinematic universe, if you're really into that, you can definitely do it. And someone also mentioned New Orleans, but yeah, so I would say for sure move to a big 3 or an up and coming city that has a lot of opportunity. Like I said, Chicago is really where you go to learn how to be funny. And be good at comedy. It happens in LA, but all of my LA comedy friends are like, I wish I could go and do like an improv show or a late night show or write my own sketch show, because I think the theaters there in LA, obviously there's going to be black box theaters wherever you are, but I think just the culture of LA is different because everyone's spread out. LA is a giant city. So, you know, the theaters that we're doing improv or sketch are way far away from like maybe your commercial auditions or where you're living or whatever. So it's much harder for you to get around and much harder for you to get people to your shows, which is an equally important thing to do. Like I've done enough. You know, take your reps, get your knocks in, like do those improv shows or those stand-up shows where you're like performing to like the bartender and like one really, really drunk person. Like you have to take those hits to get good. But you know, at a certain point, you're like, ooh, 10:30 show on a Monday, or I could sleep. Yeah, I think I'll just sleep, right? So you're always going to make those internal calculus for yourself. So wherever you go out of, I would say, the big 3, it's never wrong. Just what you want to focus on first. So, but there's film and theater and TV and comedy and all of it. It's just how much you're willing to work for it. Also, Chicago is really easy to get to everything. So there you go.
I think that like 10 Cup alumni there. So
yeah.
I think that the New York and Chicago tourism boards should have sponsored us tonight. We should have made some advertising money. I know Eliza has a question. She DM'd me that she had a question. And if I know we're at 6:30, if any of our panelists have to go, I totally understand. So before I let Eliza ask her question, I asked the panelists in advance. Usually what we do at these panels is we ask our panelists if they are interested in or open to being contacted by our students for follow-up, for their networking. They can go ahead right now and drop their email or whatever information they're comfortable with in the chat, so that if I inevitably don't get to your question, because of course y'all are also interested in asking further questions, you can follow up with these folks who are very graciously, and make sure that you send them to everybody in the chat. But sorry, go ahead, Eliza.
Thank you. My name's Eliza. I'm also a senior here at Rhodes, and I'm also in Contents Under Pressure, the improv troupe. So yeah. Right now, I am writing a one-woman show as kind of like a directed inquiry for my senior year, and I'm also like a singer-songwriter, so I am building experience in creating my own work, but I am wondering if you guys could give any pointers on how to get that work out there once you're out of undergrad, which kind of allows you to present your own work all the time.
I'll take this one. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. I have self-produced my own work. I have gotten investors to invest in work. I have submitted work to festivals and performed it at festivals. I have collaborated with other artists to produce work. I think the biggest thing, there's a bunch of different things you have to think about, and I'm happy to, I pop my email in the chat if you want to chat more specifically about your project, Eliza, but I think some things to think about are who, when you are doing your work, who do you want to champion that work? Because if you are going to self-produce it, you're going to have to do a lot. You're going to have to be the one spearheading everything. You're going to be the one that's going to have to find funding, hire a director, potentially cast the show, versus if you want somebody else to take it off your hands and take your baby and turn it into something totally different, but then you just kind of get to show up and sit in the audience. Those are two really different processes. And it's just something that you should think about. Producing your own work has the benefit of it's going to be exactly what you make it, but it could be really difficult to get there. And trying to get your work out to festivals or picked up by another theater company label can come with a lot of rejection. Sometimes it's hard to just get your foot in that door. I would definitely recommend taking a playwriting class, even if it's online, connecting with playwriting groups, even if it's like I'm a part of a ton of like female playwriting groups, whether it's like on Facebook in New York. Those are really great. They're really collaborative. People post on there all the time. They're like, hey, like this new submission just popped up at this place. Everybody submit your plays, like stuff like that. So I'd be happy to chat more about it, but those are some stuff off the top of my head.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna go ahead and say we can take one more question, and then I won't ask of anybody else any more of their time. They've been so gracious. Rebecca?
Hey, so I'm Rebecca Winchester. I'm a junior and I'm from Memphis, but I'm kind of on the opposite side. My dream is to be a casting agent or casting director. I don't know if whether film or TV. I have a passion for musical theater as well. Telsey is like my dream job, of course, if you know anything about casting and theater. But, you know, like NBC is always having internships, and I could definitely see myself casting there, but, you know, there's no like major or anything like that for a casting agent, and it's kind of a very odd thing to want to do. And so I just didn't know if y'all had any sort of suggestions or advice or anything like that for that field.
Hey, I'll just speak to that and say I know a few casting agents, Erica Daniels, who used to be the casting director at Steppenwolf, who then went on to be executive director of Victory Gardens Theater here in Chicago. I could totally connect you with her via Facebook or something like that. And then a woman that I worked with at Playhouse on the Square was an actor, and then went on to be a casting director for Paper Mill Playhouse, and has done a lot of national tours.
Who was that?
Allison Frank.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And I know them really well. So I could definitely connect you. I definitely would say, and it's even a point to what Helen was answering earlier about somebody, you know, Eliza, talking about your own work. You know, artists need arts advocates, and you will find them out there. You will like be sitting in a restaurant at a bar and talking to some couple that maybe, or a person that might be a little bit older than you, and they're saying, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm doing a one-woman show. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, tell us what it is. And they'll become a donor, and they'll give you $500, and you'll be like the most ginormous $500 you've ever gotten in your life, if you've ever gotten $500. And it's awesome. And I think that there are tons of theater companies in every city. I can only speak for Chicago. I haven't lived in New York, but in Chicago that would love to have like somebody help them with their casting. And at first it might just be reading sides or organizing how a casting process goes, like taking the headshots and signing people in and all of that kind of stuff. But Rebecca, if you came to Chicago and you were just like, I want to help you cast shows, if any of you need my help, I mean, I guarantee you would get multiple calls. And it wouldn't be about maybe you casting it yet, but you'd meet the person that was casting it, and then you would meet, and I even know, I know a number of casting directors in Chicago. I know Claire Simon really well. I just got a puppy this week, and we've been talking about puppies because we have the same puppy. I know, I mean, the irony is that none of these people have ever gotten me a job. I just know them. So, you know, it's hilarious. But I do know them. Casting people to me are incredible storytellers, and they, you know, one of them told me a long time ago, Mickey Pascal Tanner. I know Mickey really well. I mean, I know these people just as friends, and like just they've seen my stuff, or I've just met them, or I've auditioned and didn't book, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But so Rebecca, if you'll hit me up, I'll connect you with about 5 casting directors in Chicago who have worked or are currently working. And then Allison is in New York, and I don't know where she's casting now, but she's always casting a national tour, musicals, Paper Mill Playhouse for years. But I just know there's a ton of small theaters, from like Timeline Theater to the Theater Building to, I mean, there's so many places in Chicago that would be like, oh my gosh, come help us handle this casting audition. So hit me up.
I'll just piggyback on that, Rebecca. I think it's amazing that you're a junior and you know you want to be a casting director. Like, wow, it's like saying I want to be a doctor and I'm, 12. I mean, it's kind of a miss, but yeah, and I know obviously a lot of casting directors in New York. Allison, that's so funny, Allison Frank. Anyway, and I don't think you have to know whether you want to go into theater or TV or film. I think it's great that you don't know. I would be surprised if you did know. I may not have the same kind of relationships that Amy, sounds like Amy has, but I certainly am happy to point you in the direction of people who have cast me and that I know are really kind people. And I am sure you will have plenty of people who would say, oh, I could use the help, whether it's going through headshots or answering emails. Because, I mean, the work of a casting director is just massive. And especially with how so many people we can self-submit now, it's just like unbelievable, And but my info is in the chat, so if you want more information about that, I am happy to. Sounds like Amy could be your Chicago person, and I could be your New York person. So sure.
Thank you all so much. That was incredible. Thank you.
Sure.
From my experience, I'll just add really quickly that certain areas like casting are one where it's like really hard to go it alone. You can kind of go it alone if you want to be a playwright or if you want to be a producer, but if you want to be a casting director, you need to study under the supervision of other casting directors. It's a smaller pool of people, and it's definitely an area that you want to, kind of climb the ladder and pay your dues, so to speak.
I would also say, the paying your dues aspect, pay your dues, but also get paid. There's definitely places in Chicago and New York and LA. All these places love to have your help and also love to not pay you for it. So make sure you're not in an extended internship as a graduate. Like, you're too old for that, right? So I think that's the number one thing I see. There's no harm in going out for any fellowships or things that you're seeing on NBC or any of the other channels. Those are, I will say, like, honestly, they're a crapshoot. Like getting a production assistant or a casting assistant type thing is really difficult, applying blindly, but who knows? You never know. So it doesn't hurt. And bye, Doug.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you, Doug, so very much. Thank you, all of y'all. I'm incredibly grateful. So happy to see you all and to meet you. And I'm gonna stay, even though we're wrapping up. I am gonna stay on here a little longer so that the students can get everybody's contact information, so the chat won't disappear. But truly, thank you guys so much, to Caitie, to Amy, to Doug, to Michael, to Helen. I'm unbelievably grateful. So happy to know that this is just a microcosm of the incredible alumni network that we have for our students. And I'm just so grateful to all of y'all for your time.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks,
Thank you so
guys.
much, guys.
Thank you, Caitie.
Thanks, everyone.
Good luck, students. I know it's hard right now, but just know we're going to get on the other side of this, and you're going to have a lot of connections and a lot of people. Okay, just make your art. Make your art. Find innovation. You guys have to find the innovation. You know, we've never done this before the way you're doing it. So, connect with us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much. That was so good.
So beautiful.
Yeah, great work facilitating, Olivia. It was so cool to hear
You
from
did so
everybody.
good. Thank you. You sound like you're about to break. It was just so beautiful. I should stop recording now.